Welcome to the online event of the European Road Maintenance Forum on the 8th International Road Maintenance Day 2025. My name is Carsten Kalcher, Secretary General of the European Asphalt Pavement Association. I will lead you through the event's program today. Let me show you the program of today. We will have 2 sessions with 3 or 4 speakers, and we will have a short break around 11 in between. After each of the sessions, we will have a roundtable with the speakers, so we will have no Q&A after each presentation. Dear viewers on the live stream, your interaction is requested. We encourage you to send questions in the chat box of YouTube and via the hashtags International Road Maintenance Day 2025, so IRMD 2025, and European Road Maintenance Forum 2025, which is hashtag ERMF 2025. Whenever you post, whenever you send any tweets, please do this with these hashtags. And also post throughout the day on the celebration of the International Road Maintenance Day. I also have some figures for you for today's event. We have people connected from more than 40 countries all over the world, and around 400 registrations have been received for this online event, which makes us quite happy for all the efforts we put into this. Next to the online participants, I also welcome my colleague from the Spanish Asphalt Pavement Association, ASEFMA, Juan José Potti, the founder of the International Road Maintenance Day in the year 2018. Juan José, would you also like to welcome the online participants?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Carsten. Well, thank you to everybody to be here. Thank you to 1 year more to repeat the importance of the maintenance of the roads and their different point of view. We start 8 years ago. This is the 8th time we collect all the focus under a new argument we developed later. The importance in terms of the environmental questions to maintain in right conditions the roads. That's the question, and we will spend several hours to talk about that. And only to add something in terms of general information. Here we start on leave, but 5 hours later, 5 p.m. from here, we resend all the emission for our friends in America, in South America especially. Thank you so much, and thank you to develop 1 year more this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan José, for this welcome. And I also want to welcome, thank you, Juan José, for welcoming the online participants. And I also want to welcome the speakers of the first session, which are with us today here in Brussels. We have Malcolm Sims to my left side. We have Steve Phillips also to my left side, and we have Christoph Nicodem to my right side. I will introduce each of them when in front of their presentation. But the first speaker of the day will be Malcolm Sims. Malcolm is no stranger to this industry or to EAPA. He's the director of the Mineral Products Association UK, representing MPA Asphalt. Malcolm has just celebrated his 25th year in the UK Association, and he's been a member in several EAPA committees for many of those years. He will inform us on the latest alarm survey from the UK, which could also be taken as a synonym for the situation in many other European countries. Malcolm, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carsten, and thank you to everyone online joining us. You're more than welcome. As Carsten said, my job title is Director of MPA Asphalt, but what I'm presenting to you on the alarm survey is something we bring together with our colleagues in Europatum and their members in the UK. So as a Director of MPA Asphalt, I'm also a Director of the AIA. The Alliance, as I said, is that 50-50 partnership between ourselves and Europatum. Our genuine aim is to increase awareness of the asphalt industry and promote the benefits and uses of asphalt to specifiers, policymakers, and the general public. As part of that, we also engage with a government body in the UK, the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Better Roads. So politicians who have interests in good road condition. We have annual events, our Sharing Best Practice event, targeted at local authority engineers. We generate Roadfile, which is an online hub of statistics from the UK and across the EU. But key to our main activity is the Alarm Survey, as the annual local authority road maintenance survey. So why do we do this? The Alarm campaign, its basic principle is that we generate credible data and produce a substantive report. With that report, we look to get media interest and get headlines to raise the public awareness and keep the public awareness of highway maintenance funding issues and their link to carriageway conditions. And by doing that with public pressure and media pressure, we seek to influence change by raising that awareness among policymakers, politicians, government, treasury, and people who look after the money that we need for highways maintenance. The report itself, it's an annual snapshot of the general condition of the local road network in the UK, or England and Wales, in fact. And that's 97% by length of roads in England and Wales. The information that we gather is provided directly by the local authority highway teams and is both quantitative and qualitative research. It's independently verified by experts in statistics. So these are not our data. This is what's provided to us. We're collating it and we're presenting it for those that want to read. And on that basis, all of that data is viewed as being highly credible, and it builds that robust picture or data-led approach of the situation for funding and conditions. Local authorities, we know, use the data to benchmark their own performances. So when they're going to their paymasters looking for bidding, they can say, well, the national average is X, we actually need Y to get the job done. So that's the heart of our campaign. This year was our 30th year, 30 years of producing this report. That tells you a message in itself that we felt the need to be doing this for such a long time. It is impactful. I'll show you some of the media coverage. And it's not the industry saying these things, it's what authorities are telling us. We, the media, central and local government, consider it valuable and reliable. We've seen DFT citing our figures to other government departments. We've seen MPs in debates using our data to hold DFT to account. This year's numbers. Unfortunately, there's not really much good news here. The one good thing is, and again, it highlights the credibility. We had a 78% response rate from the local authorities. So almost 80% of all local authorities in England and Wales sent us data and information. An average survey, if you get 10%, you're doing really well. So if you're getting nearly 80 is incredible. Key messages from that data. Unfortunately, the backlog of carriageway repairs in England and Wales has reached new heights, nearly £17 billion. That's roughly 20 billion euros or 22 billion US dollars. More than half of the local road network in England and Wales could fail in the next 15 years. That's structural conditions, 15 years or less structural life left. Another scary number. In England and Wales, the authorities have spent nearly 20 billion pounds, which has gone, it feels like, to fill in 17.5 million potholes. And if you translate that into a frequency, that's one pothole every 18 seconds for a decade, 10 years. That's the kind of output of what's been going on. Filling in potholes is not the answer, and potholes are the symptom of the levels of underfunding of our networks. So what we're pushing for, particularly this year, we're looking for a complete change in the mindset from central government. Currently, authorities get given an annual budget. Year on year, they get X amount to go to highway maintenance. We're saying that's not good enough. They can't keep up with deterioration just by doing that. So we want to give, or we're asking for authorities to get a 5-year funding term. That way they can plan. They can determine where they see the deterioration happening and plan to deal with it before it becomes a real problem. Obviously, the level of funding needs to be substantially increased as well. And ideally, it's not a popular political position, is to ring fence those budgets specifically for highway maintenance. So the funding may be allocated there, but it goes into a general pot in authority. They determine how they spend it. Some of it may not even be spent on roads at all. So we're asking for money that is allocated is put to the purpose for which it's set aside. And by doing those things and investing, not just spending, investing in local roads would allow highway teams to improve conditions, provide better value to taxpayers, and drive the current government's economic growth aims. As I said, we also get supporting comments from others in the sector, motoring organisations, professional institutes, local government association, and so forth. So just a very quick demonstration of the sort of coverage we get in the media across all sorts of channels, the print media, television, radio, motoring magazines, government magazines. This year we had coverage in every single national UK newspaper, except the Financial Times. But, you can't have everything. The Metro newspaper there on the left is the most distributed newspaper in the UK. I think there's a version in Europe. It's distributed for free in stands outside railway stations, train stations. So yeah, the potential readership of that is just massive. And it's not just UK coverage. The message gets picked up on a global basis. For this year alone, our current global reach through online, press, whatever channels, nearly 14.5 billion views or potential views, and nearly 1,000 separate items of coverage in print, online, and broadcast. Obviously, we've just finished Q1, but we got some charts there of our performance in the last 5 years or so. Last year, our reach potential was nearly 50 billion views. So it shows you how extensive the campaign is. And bizarrely, you won't see that particularly well. This was even picked up by Pravda. So the news outlet for the Soviet Union are reporting on UK's potholes. It's fascinating to me. So that's all well and good. That's good metrics for us. We're performing, we're doing our job, but what influence does it have? So the data continues to be used as that credible reference point across the year. We do this early in the year, and then we leverage it throughout the year. A range of stakeholders, media, DFT, political parties. On the top right there, you'll see our former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, staring into a pothole. And the current Prime Minister was interviewed just last Friday on BBC Radio about this. And as AIA, we help politicians use that data and flex it. We make representations to transport committees and public inquiries and so forth. So it's keeping the issue top of mind so that politicians can't ignore it to drive that action by government. So why is that relevant to IRMD, International Road Maintenance Day? Unfortunately, I think it has to be a bit of a cautionary tale from us. This was published in the Sunday Times towards the end of last year, and The UK line on that chart is the dark line at the bottom. What this shows is the spending on highway maintenance in a range of OECD countries since 1995, which is coincidentally when we started Alarm. So you can see the levels of investment across the world dropping off. Only Australia seems to be performing relatively well. If my memory's right, I think OECD recommends that 1% of GDP should be spent on road maintenance. Everyone on that graph is below 1%. As a result, you get charts like this, and that's the shortfall in funding that we've seen this year in Alarm, over 1.25 billion. And that's what you get as a result on road condition. The red is not a good place to be, and the green you want to maximize. So that's just a quick run through on our experience in the UK with our Alarm report, and you can download it for free from that web link.
Thank you, Malcolm, for this presentation. And we, as said before, we continue directly with the next speaker of the panel, today's panel. It's my distinct honor to introduce you the next speaker, Steve Phillips, the Secretary General of the Conference of European Directors of Roads, CEDR. CEDR serves as a platform for Europe's national road authorities, facilitating the exchange of expertise and collaborative discussions on all road-related issues. Today, Steve will give us the perspective of CEDR for the future of road maintenance. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carsten. Thank you, IAPA and colleagues. It is a pleasure to join you here today on International Road Maintenance Day. Maybe the tone of my presentation will be a little less alarming in the sense that the role of national road authorities often is to stress the confidence and the strength of our network and not stress too much the negativity. But on the other hand, we have to be very, very honest. So national road maintenance, and talking about some of the aspects of road maintenance from a national perspective, as Malcolm, of course, was talking about a local perspective. So just a couple of reflections, since 2013 on Europe's roads, freight volumes have increased by 22%. So, it's not that we're standing still. The demand on the road network, the demand on the pavements is increased tremendously. I think it's also important maybe to draw attention to the expanding network of cycle routes. The number of cycle routes around Europe has skyrocketed, shall we say, which of course is a very welcome development, but this adds even more road length, shall we say, to the aspect. Currently, in terms of our internal surveys amongst the different national road administration, that's right, again, this is national, we're looking at close to 90% of motorway pavements in satisfactory to very good condition. So whether that's a good target, that can, of course, to be debatable. Not every, as Malcolm said, that there's not every section of road is necessarily going to be in a very good condition. And I think there are also some ongoing discussions, actually, how do we actually judge very good in the future? So there is an aspect there of, looking at we should be patting ourselves on the back for that. And I'm pleased to say the carbon impact of highway infrastructure generally is falling. So it's not all bad news, but there is some bad news. This is the situation. We have a very aging infrastructure across Europe. A lot of charts, the majority or vast amount of Europe's highway infrastructure was built 60s, 70s, and 80s. Certainly that in the 60s is reaching the end of its design life. So that's not just, obviously, I don't think there's many pavements lasting since the 60s, but that shows, if you like, the condition and the stress that the whole network is being put under. Malcolm talked about, the overall underlying pavement condition. Well, if you're laying pavements over other infrastructures which are failing, then you will have a problem with the pavement as well. We also have issues, obviously, ongoing, and I don't want to draw too much attention to the funding, because that, of course, is other departments, other people's decision to decide how much the funding. But certainly, I think there is some looking with, I won't say nervousness, but looking with caution at the declining fuel taxes that we have across Europe, and the revenue that is going into the government expenditure, and what that means for our roads. At the same time, we have climate change. So not only do we have an aging infrastructure, so we're not necessarily in the place we wanted to be to start with, but now we're seeing the impacts of climate change as well, which is creating a lot of challenges, not least to the pavements as we move forward, both in terms of the wet, the extreme rainfall, the flooding, the change in the freeze-thaw cycles as we go further north in Europe, and of course the extreme heat that we see not only in the south of Europe but increasingly further north. So there's a double whammy of issues coming to a head. We also have the issue of how we face digitalization, and this is an additional challenge. I raise it as a challenge here because this is an additional task that we see facing road authorities in the future. A road authority is no longer, or very rarely, just an organization that is maintaining the roads. It's also provided a lot of other value-added services, and I think we'll hear later on in the presentations actually how we can bring some of those elements together. But there's an element of how we turn what some might see as a challenge and how we might turn that into an opportunity in the future. Last year, some of you will be aware, we presented to the Minister of Transport in Ireland on behalf of the ministers, because that's who the members of CEDA report to, the Dublin Declaration, which was, I think, a commitment from the national road authorities. It was not a request. It was a commitment that says this is what we're going to do together, and this is what we're committing to do together. So there is a lot of work now going in mapping the main critical and relevant infrastructures, where are those corridors, how we better cooperate between road authorities across borders or indeed across jurisdictions to better time the interventions, because the works that need to be done, we want to minimize the impact on the traveling people and on the traveling freight. There's an emphasis now at looking at some of the contradictory policy legislative requirements that road authorities have to do. So, there's a lot of look now at, how we look at the sustainability, how we continue to drive forward road safety, looking at the safe system approach and some of the challenges there. One aspect which I think is very relevant to our partners here today is reconsidering the construction delivery chain. This is something we started a couple of years ago, how we work much better in partnership. And I think that's a much stronger word now, how we work more in partnership with industry, recognizing actually we need an industry that is successful, can survive, can deliver good quality products, can invest in innovation, and can continue to deliver. So I think, there's a lot of challenges we understand now, and it's a shared challenge. We need to look at that. A lot of look at reconsidering our governance frameworks. That includes how we better work with the population, with society. Stresses moves towards more open governance, or how we balance that, how we work with other stakeholders. What's also important, and I'll focus on this a little bit, is the overall vision for the digital road manager. So digitalization becomes an absolute topic. And I don't want to forget, I think, again, something that the whole sector shares is the skills and developing a better framework for skills, knowledge development and implementation of that, how we can work right across the sector to drive that forward. Just a quick one on the digital road manager, because I think this was something very important that we developed last week with the CEOs, the general directors, on trying to understand what digitalization actually means. So digitalization refers to organizations, how we collect, use, create, standardize data, how we help then, drive forward sustainable inclusive mobility. Then important is how we use that data to make the investment, maintenance and operation of the road network more efficient and effective, and to further expand the expertise within the organization for delivering those high quality services. And it's also important, I think, is this anticipating social and technological changes, particularly when we talk about data. Malcolm was referring to the media. Well, some parts of the world refer to that as the old media. The new media perhaps is becoming more important, and how we respond to that, how we, in many cases, build a more bilateral relationship with the public, perhaps than there was the case before, because this is important if we can continue to drive those services. So all of this is looking at how we develop a system-based framework for digitalization across networks and across the road authorities, and of course with industry. I think the connection with industry there becomes very important. So digital road manager, I think, as I said, digital infrastructure is a large part of that. And you'll see on the chart, there's a lot of focus there on BIM, asset information. The digital governance aspect I mentioned is how we better report, how we better share data, how we're made perhaps more open with the data where it is possible to be, because you'll understand the prevailing climate in Europe now is actually there's even some concerns now that maybe we need to limit some of the sharing that previously happened. And then, of course, digital traffic. Not to forget digital traffic. It's one of the most customer focused aspects of our work, and we need to bring that forward. And that's why when we talk about road maintenance, it's not just the asphalt, but we also need to consider about the road works and how we better inform people and how we actually reduce the impact on the travel in public. I just want a quick, we haven't forgotten our Vision Zero, and there, pushing that traffic safety is a vital part of sustainability. It shouldn't be forgotten as part of the overall objectives. I think maybe a little nod to Malcolm there, traffic safety on the entire road network. Very conscious, we're driving down the deaths on the motorways, where motorways are safer and safer. They are the safest roads, but that's useless unless we're delivering, safe overall networks. So we need to work with everyone. Traffic safety for everyone, and that includes aspects such as, the vulnerable road users, but also considering, how we might deal with other users or other impacts of the road network. And then I think finally, and this is, of course, is a big one, is the improvements that we can get through new technology. But just a quick one on the technology and the innovation. Many of you have seen the classic one of the caveman with the square wheel and not wanting the round wheel, and which is to a certain extent I think is maybe a little bit simplistic, because again it focuses on the issue of when there are so many different alternatives. And if you think back, the round wheel maybe was one part of the pentagon wheel and the triangle wheel and a whole lot of others. So you're trying to judge, well, actually, which is the best wheel to use? And then we've got the issue of, okay, then how does industry bring that to market? And I think we can think of a lot of situations where maybe the best option was then not the most cheap or the most cost effective, and how we address that. And then again, just a final one is the nudge towards the skills. Do we have the skills necessary for these and the skills necessary to actually bring it to being on the roads? So these are some of the things I think, we need to have good and open discussions, hopefully with partners around the table and in the future. So with that, as I say, our Dublin Declaration, we will continue to address in common challenges on our future-proofing. I stress the future-proofing of our aging road networks, looking at the digital road manager, getting to grips with Vision Zero and the safe system, and very importantly, working with our partners, all partners, public and private, to develop a deeper, broader understanding and address our common challenges to achieve excellence in the managing of roads. And I would say a quick plug here for TRA, and I hope many of you will be in Budapest next year and we continue these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for this presentation. Right on time, like Malcolm also. That's excellent. Thank you for that also. Furthermore, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Christoph Nicodem, the Director General of the European Union Road Federation, ERF. Issues across Europe. In addition to this role at the ERF, Christoph serves as an executive chairperson of Mobility for Prosperity in Europe, an association dedicated to promoting sustainable and efficient transport systems within the EU. Christoph, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carsten. Okay, so it's a real pleasure to be with you today, and thank you for the invitation. I'm going to address the benefit of proactive road maintenance, and maybe you will see that my approach is why it is important to have proactive road maintenance by underlining the effects on non-proactive road maintenance. So when we talk about roads, I think it is important to know when we look at European roads, what is the road network in Europe. So we are talking about a road network of approximately 4.5 million kilometers. And if we look at road and transport, most of the passenger transport in inland EU is made on roads, something like 78%. It's the same figure or very similar figure for the freight transport with 75 or almost 75%. So we see that road really is an important mobility element. And if we look at this chart, we can see the evolution of transport between the 90s and now. And we see that the general demand of transport is going to increase. And even though we see a slight decrease of the part of road, it is still the main transport mode for transport in Europe. We also need to look at the transport infrastructure, the road network, as a major asset value. There is here a quote from OECD about the transport infrastructure being the backbone of the national economies. It's a huge financial asset that probably many people don't consider enough. Some years ago, we did an estimation of the reconstruction value of the road infrastructure, and we came to that. At that time, we were talking about approximately 5 million kilometers. Of course, UK was included in the calculation, but we were around 8,000 billion euros as a reconstruction value. I adapted here the figures, so it gives you a real idea of the importance as a community asset. We talked about the investment in transport infrastructure, and that figure of 1% was quoted as a sort of minimum to maintain the road infrastructure in a good condition. And here these figures, we see that they are almost all under 1%, and we're talking about the investment for all transport modes, not only for roads. So we are far from the figures that we should reach. Here again, we see maintenance expenditure for roads in different EU countries, and we see that over the years, the trend, with maybe a peak in the 2006, we came back to same sort of situation as many years ago. So the trend is not really going up so far. We mentioned the aspect of aging infrastructure, and here, mainly in the western part of Europe, most of the infrastructure has been built in the 1670s, 80s, and now reaching the end of life, the use of life. In the meantime, we see that assets are near the end because of lack of investment in maintenance, of course, the natural wear and tear, the changes in the climate change, which also has an impact, and the changes in the traffic, the volume of traffic, the intensity of traffic, new vehicles, heavy vehicles, and also new road usages that were not the same at the moment where the roads were built. These impacts, negative impacts, and I listed some of them, and I'm going to show some slides about that. Deterioration of the road condition, the backlogs, increased needs for renewal, safety hazards due to extreme events that we see more and more, increased costs of intervention and funding pressures. Where to put the money? Construction, maintenance, improvement, preservation, upgrade. Increased fuel consumption, increased cost for the economy and the society. I will quote the example of the Leverkusen Bridge in Germany, and more frequent roadworks interventions. This slide shows the evolution and deterioration of road condition. It's a slide coming from the Spanish Road Association, showing the evolution of the condition of the road, going from a sort of acceptable level, and with the time going down to poor, with the risk of going to very poor situation. impacts of non-proactive maintenance here with some pictures. We see accidents, slopes, bridge. I didn't take pictures of terrible pictures of bridge collapse, but we know about these events. Potholes, we have this survey from the UK, and some cracks, and the deterioration of the general condition of the road is one of these negative impacts. Another is interesting slide, again coming from Spain, from the Spanish Road Association, shows the evolution of the amount of money necessary to maintain 1 kilometer of road. Orange is the national road, blue is the regional road. So we see that with the lack of regular maintenance, to repair 1 kilometer of road over the time, the money necessary increases. So every year we see that it requires more money to be maintained properly. There's another impact of non-proactive maintenance that sometimes people don't think of. It's the increased fuel consumption. And this table shows with the reference infrastructure with good surface, so you have a certain level of consumption, and with a degraded infrastructure at low speed, your consumption can increase by 4 to 6%. And if you go with a high speed, the difference can reach up to 10% in fuel consumption. So it also has an impact on the users and the money that the users have to spend to drive on the roads. I said I would talk about the Leverkusen Bridge. The graph on the right shows, in fact, if you don't maintain regularly your road, the operational cost will increase proportionally. So we can see the two graphs going and crossing each other. An interesting case of lack of maintenance and some consequences for the economy was the Leverkusen Bridge, which is on the A1 motorway in Germany, in a very industrial area with a lot of chemical industry. They had to close the traffic, to close the bridge to traffic over 3.5 tons for a period of 16 months. And the estimated cost for the society by extending the trips, for example, was estimated at 80 million euro over those 16 months. And after that, they reopened the bridge, and I didn't take the further sequence, which was, again, they had to close the bridge to the traffic over 3.5 tons. Another aspect, and I'm sure that for the road authorities, it's also quite an important one, is the roadworks interventions for the maintenance and the preservation or repairs on the road. With non-proactive maintenance, what generally happens is that when you have to intervene on the road, then you get to longer operations. The size of the work zoned can be bigger. You have to perform more intense works. It has a cost also, but it has also an influence in terms of safety risk for the operatives and for the road users. We know that when road users enter a work zone, the behavior can really cause more easily some problems, issues, and some extra risks. Of course, we mentioned the new extreme events and weather conditions that we now face more and more. The aspect of resilience of the road infrastructure and the forecast is also important. Should we keep on building the road the same way that we used to do? We need to maybe reconsider the way we will build them in the future. And I get to the end of my presentation with, on the left, a table that most of you are probably familiar with, which is the importance of regular maintenance. You see the graph with the red line showing what is going to happen over the time if you don't maintain your road. The quality and the condition of the road is going to drop dramatically, whereas if you see the black lines, by doing some regular maintenance, you will maintain the condition and the quality of the road for a longer period with less money. And on the right, this is a table that was taken from the study that we carried out in the ERF about road asset management. And this is really the contrary of what I would say the non-proactive road maintenance. By acting proactively, you really start to analyze and see what your asset is, see the condition of the asset, and then you will have to decide how to preserve it, maintain it, upgrade if necessary. But then you cannot do everything, so you will probably have to do an analysis and establish priorities. And according to these priorities, you will have to choose the best value for money solution. You implement that solution, but it's not done yet. Once you have implemented, you have to see what the result is and maybe make some corrections for the future, because the process is a process that is going to continue in the future. And this is really the proactive approach which gets the best results compared to non-proactive approach for the road maintenance. And that's what I wanted to display today. And thank you for your attention and allowing me to do this presentation.
Thank you, Christoph. Thank you to all the speakers of the first session. Very interesting insights in different fields, a lot about funding, a lot about maintenance, proactive.
But what we need to look at is how to better finance the necessary maintenance. And for that, I think we need to also look at new solutions, at new technologies that the road sector is developing, because we haven't stopped. Sometimes the road sector has the image of a very conservative one, whereas there is a lot of new technologies, new developments, but these developments need to be taken by the final customer. And I'm happy when I heard, for example, what Steve said about collaborative approach. It is important that we don't develop on our side if the market, our customers, are not going to use those new solutions. And it's really important that we listen to each other. So we can say what we can bring, but we need also to listen to what the authorities need. And the authorities also need to listen to what we can propose, so we can get to a common agreement that will better use the available finances.
Next 10 years, that would be fantastic. And that's not actually the budget we're asking for. That's the increase in the budget that we need. A lot of people assume that we as the AIA are saying, give us this money and spend it on asphalt. Nowhere in our report do we say, you must do this in asphalt. All we're saying is, this is the level of money that is required to get our networks back into the condition that the operators want them to be in. Whatever new innovations and methods come forward, particularly proactive stuff, my gut feeling is that the network has to be in a decent condition for those systems to best work. There's no point putting a proactive treatment on something that's already shot. So it's the timing, but we've got both problems. We've got to sort out that structural problem. That's where our industry really kicks in, while we're still looking after what we've already got. So we've got to get the conditions right for those proactive treatments to work best. So it's attacking it from both ends, from the bottom up and the top down, and it's not simple.
Steve.
It's a great question, Carsten, and I've just come from 2 days of a high-level conference on sustainable road funding. Reflections I take from that, because I think it is important, and one of them, we talk of the road system. We try to refer it as a transport mode, but there is a huge, I think, contradiction, if you like, between the fact that most people put an enormous value on their cars, perhaps underestimate the costs, and yet the infrastructure and the other services, they hugely underestimate the value and put the emphasis on the costs. And I think there's an element there of how do we start to perhaps subtly change that debate. One of the areas I think is going to be, well, who are the people that get to gain from this? And I don't want to make too many provocative policy statements, but this whole idea that the user pays. And I say this because we're in asphalt. The users who demand the highest quality asphalts are cyclists. And basically develop a more nuanced discussion. And I don't want to get into discussions about influencing the politicians or whatever. This is not about the politicians. This is much more focused, I think, on the customers, the users of the roads, and those who value or should value the system, the services the roads provide. I also think we have maybe some tough questions. We talk about climate change. It's perhaps bit antiquated, to consider that we can provide a network 100% of the time, and always at 100% performance. So there are going to be some serious discussions in the future of how do we match the level of service we can provide, which of course is what we're essentially doing, trying to match the level of service we can provide with the funds that are available.
So you want to add something?
Yeah,
Christoph?
what I really liked in the approach of Steve is that roads are and expectations from the roads, that these expectations are changing with the time. We could see with the COVID, for example, how different the vision of the roads became from one day to the other, with a quick development of cycle lanes, for example, new road usages. So the people want to get the service they expect from the roads, and we need to provide that sort of service. Not because we say a road is a stretch of asphalt or whichever. The road starts also with the walkway when you get out of your house, with the bus lane, with the cycle lane, with the road, with the highways, and so. So we have to have a more global vision of the mobility needs of all our citizens, and we need to provide them with the service that they are waiting.
I think Juan Jose wants to add something to the service.
It's a big, in my opinion, it's a big mistake. Our customer is the citizen. And we are a common agreement with the administration to develop this. And I fully agree in this philosophy, this point of view I developed later. But I feel we are too endogamic. We don't give the argument to defend and to see the importance to maintain properly the roads. And I feel this is the right approach. We try to develop on this today and during this journey, these kind of things is to show the importance, to give the argument, to inform to the citizen the importance to maintain rightly the roads. I say later.
That's one of the challenges we have with alarm. Had increased. Conditions, surface conditions were improving. And we really struggled to think of how we could communicate that. It was actually a case of, well, if you invest, this is the benefit you get. And we were so used to thinking of it the other way, because we're in such a bad situation, it's hard to sell the positives when the user only sees negatives. And their expectation is 24/7, 365, immediate service, access all the time. That's what they expect and what they demand. So yeah, it's a real challenge to communicate those benefits when today users aren't seeing them. It seems like a dream, an ideal world, a nirvana. It's what the road operators want to deliver as well. They're all responsible engineers, experts in their own field, looking to deliver that service, the mobility, and everything else that they're tasked with doing. Which comes back to what Steve was saying about collaboration. I remembered meeting with a chief executive of a national road authority a number of years ago. I won't name him. And said, my members are really concerned. We're seeing our volumes drop in. You're our biggest customer. What's the forward plan looking like? And he turned to me, and I was so shocked by it, I didn't have an answer for him. And he said to me, we're not here to keep your industry in business. I was so stunned. And I realized too late that my answer to him was, well, you can't deliver your service without our service. And that's where the collaboration is necessary. We have to work together. It's not a chain, it's a loop.
Yeah, very nice idea. Steve, you want?
Not turned on and off. I think maybe that's one of the challenges we also have. It's sometimes it's not regular, it stutters. There's a bit more, and then a bit investment, and I can understand not only is that difficult for the road authorities to actually manage their programs that way, but it's difficult for industry to ramp up. I think we all know that. But I was also reflecting. Was one of the earlier slides. Australia was mentioned. And I am interested in that, because my understanding is there's a very strong involvement there of the insurance companies in that whole approach from a road safety perspective. So I think again, focusing on something that's very user driven, I think could be very interesting.
is there a link between proper road maintenance and road safety? It's a provocative question.
I think it's a given. The mandate the authorities are given is to keep roads in a safe condition. That's the absolute minimum expectation.
Yeah.
Providing the data to show the degrees of safety or risk is difficult. But yeah, it is a given. Roads have to be safe.
That's one of the highest maxims of each road engineers. Each road engineer. Clear. That's clear. As we have several certain threshold, we will never go under that when it comes to friction, for example, when it comes to safety. But potholes have an influence on safety when you're driving over it. Rutting also. There's the surface conditions.
Yeah, there was one ironic. I've got all sorts of memories. One authority in the UK that I wouldn't say refused to fill in potholes, but their approach, their intervention criteria were stretched because they saw the positive effect of slowing traffic. So they were using poor road condition and potholes as speed humps because they couldn't afford to fill in the potholes and then create speed humps. So they said, "Oh, well, we've got a bad situation. Let's leverage it a different way." It was creative thinking at its best, I think.
We have only a few minutes left, 2 or 3 minutes left. But I want to come back to this. How can we better communicate the economic and environmental benefits of this proactive maintenance to road users, and to those who give the money to maintain the roads? And we are all in the when it comes to Europe, we have to see that we do much more work on maintenance than on new constructions. So maintenance is the future of our business, is the core business that we have to deal with in the future. And how can we communicate this benefit better, that really that the tap is not on and off, that's a constant flow of necessary funding to be proactive. And who wants to take this question? Steve?
I think my quick, given the time is limited, I think my quick answer there would be the data and the digitalization. I think that is the open door to our collaboration. We've had discussions about the better information that the construction sector can give when they're handing over a newly maintained or newly constructed section that we can then take into account the asset management. We'll hear later about the role of the vehicle sector. So there's a whole area of preventive maintenance, proactive maintenance, better understanding the asset and better communicating that.
We were recording a podcast yesterday here in the same studio, and the guest was Martin Luby from a construction equipment producer. And he said, during the paving, with all the sensors, all the information we have right now, we already see where's the first spot we have to do maintenance, because not everything is 100% as in real life. There are the Gaussian curve you have. And so he already says, with this data, with this information, we can start from the very beginning when we pave the road, maybe even when we design it, when we pave it, when we use it, when it's in service, when we have to maintain it, to be able to reuse it. It's a circle. And we all have to work together on this, all the stakeholders. I think that's a good closing word for this session.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you all very, very much for your contributions, for this nice roundtable, for all these insights, for the work you put into your presentation, for the time you spent to come here. So thank you so much. And we will have a short break of 15 minutes. We will restart at 11:15 with the second session of the day. Thank you so much so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not have a presentation, but we have 4 presentations. We have a presentation from Camino, from Jose Carlos, from Thomas, and from Juan Jose. I will introduce them one after the other whenever they have their presentation. But at first, we are pleased to welcome José Carlos Valdecantos, a specialist in digital innovation and data analysis in transport infrastructure. Today, he will present how vehicle big data can be harnessed to assess key parameters like road regularity, evenness, fuel consumption, and emissions, paving the way for smarter, more sustainable maintenance strategies. José Carlos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carsten. Yes, I'm going to talk about how road authorities are using data that's being collected from the cars to gain some insights into their asset management, road safety, or even mobility. And I think the provision of data from the cars is a case of is a successful case story of IoT, Internet of Things. I remember the first time I got exposed to the Internet of Things word or meaning was maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I don't know, but it was some time ago. And I remember when I heard about it, that there were conversations like saying we would get our fridge to order the milk when you're running out of milk. The fridge will call the supermarket and you will get the milk delivered. But time went passing and that didn't happen. No. And looking for successful use cases of IoT, Internet of Things, I really, for a good few years, I never heard of many successful, at least that I could relate to. No, but I remember maybe it was 7 or 8 years ago, a friend of mine that he grows oranges in Murcia, south of Spain, and he was telling me that he had some sensors in his fields, and the buyers of his produce, which were German, super big German supermarket chain, would call him and say, the fields are very dry. You need to water more the fields, and because they would buy the oranges, no? So I said, oh, how do the Germans know? No, because we have these sensors and they connect and oh, this is amazing. And at that time, I started listening to more and more, hearing about road authorities installing sensors on the roads, in the structures, obviously in tunnels, but even outside tunnels. No, they install sensors for the salinity, for speed, for many other things. But I think that within time, that trend is going maybe slower, and because now the cars are the sensors, and obviously the cars are everywhere. No. Reading about asphalt 4.0, I don't know, Juanjo, when was the first time? I don't know how many years ago.
10 years. Well,
10 years.
More or less.
Well, yeah, I was reading about asphalt and I could see 3. You were mentioning the first time I heard you talk about this. You were mentioning like 3 parts: the digital technologies, like what I'm showing there in the slide, no, of the plant and the equipment. Also, in the second point, you were mentioning about the smart management systems. But the third part, and this was very surprising to me, you were mentioning customer experience, which is not a normal. It's something we talk about when we talk about roads. It's very rare that we get feedback from the users. The user drives through the road, and you as an asset manager, normally the user, maybe it's even it's something you don't want, the user, because you just want the road not to be ruined, and the user just gets in the middle, no? But now the user drives a car that the car is collecting a lot of information. I'm going to show 2 very short examples of this, 2 or 3 examples. As I said, it's much more effective or cost effective to have the cars collecting information than getting engineers on the roads, no? So I'm going to show a couple of examples. This is coming from a supplier, Nira Dynamics. They bring data, that's the state, the roughness, no? They measure the vertical movements of the wheels, and they can give you an idea of a measurement of the roughness of road. In this case, it's the M50 in Madrid, no? And because cars drive every day, you can see when the roughness has improved, no? In this case, an improvement in roughness is going down. You can see, I cannot see it from here where I am, but I think it's in August and July, a drop in the roughness means the road was improved. It's the change of color there between the yellow, greenish into the blue. So it's very easy, to detect trends when cars are being deteriorated, or cars are following that. We don't need to send people on the ground. The same with friction. Now, friction for us is even more interesting or more important in the road, because it deals with road safety. In this case, that's a road in Malaga. On the x-axis is the kilometers, and on the y-axis is the weeks. No, you see a greenish line in the middle. That is the improvement in friction after the heavy rain. You can see some spots there in the red boxes, which are the segments of the roads that have worse friction. But even because cars are driving every day, you can tell not just in any given point, like when you do a survey, but you can just monitor, the cars are monitoring that, no? So it's very interesting and very easy to follow friction. And here, the last example, and with this I'm going to finish. This is friction of an event that happened in the 2nd of March in Spain, when we had a road blockage in the A2 near Zaragoza, between Zaragoza and Madrid. The gray areas in the middle is because the road was closed at the time. And you can see around 6 o'clock, you see more or less a column there of a yellow color. Sorry, I should have said the y-axis is the kilometers and the hours in the bottom. No, so there was a snow, which was particularly at 6 o'clock, particularly heavy in chainage, 140 more or less. No, so the road managers in this road, and this is my last slide. These boxes that I'm showing here, I don't know if it's easy to understand. The boxes are the restrictions. So at 6 o'clock, there is a restriction, the box more to the left, that the road manager is saying, okay, I'm closing the road because I'm seeing the friction is going down. So I'm closing the road first for trucks. So all this, my point here, showing all these pictures with a lot of colors, is that the management of the road can be done just collecting the information from the cars, which is much easier than putting bodies on the ground. No? And that's what I wanted to explain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, José Carlos. That was quick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. So we have more time for the round table later on, and I think there will be many questions for you. But by the way, you were also a speaker last year, and you explained the methodology in more detail. So if people want to jump into this, they can do it when checking the streaming of last year. Okay, thank you so far. We come to the next speaker. And please to welcome Camino Arce, who brings valuable insights from the Spanish state road network. She will share the outcomes of a state pavement rehabilitation projects, focusing on how improvements in regularity and texture have translated into measurable gains in fuel efficiency and emissions reductions. Camino, we're happy to have you here. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Carsten. And good morning. And thank you to the European Asphalt Pavement Association for inviting me once again to celebrate International Road Maintenance Day with you. It's a pleasure to be here today to share the results of our case study on the M50 highway in Madrid, focusing on the impact of pavement rehabilitation activities on carbon dioxide emissions and vehicle fuel consumption. Christoph Nicodemus has already talked in session 1 about the relationship between pavement state and fuel consumption. In this case study, we wanted to measure through real dates the impact of pavement condition in fuel consumption. This study was conducted in collaboration with the Polytechnic University of Valencia. The company showed all this knowledge that they have already said, and the assistance of ASEPNA. I'm sorry. Okay. Today, I would like first to introduce my company, its road networks and its investment plan, as well as the site of this project. Next, I will explain the methodology used in this case study. Following that, I will discuss the before and after analysis. And finally, I will conclude with some key takeaways. Let's get started. I will reverse. SAIT is a state-owned public company established in 2005 within the Ministry of Transport. Following the signing of the management agreement in 2017 and its addendum in 2018, the ministry assigned SAIT the responsibility for managing the operations of 9 highways previously overseen by concessionary companies that had declared bankruptcy. As of February 2019, SAIT became the Spanish toll road maintenance company with the largest network under its management, overseeing a total of 700 kilometers of roadways. SAIT is in charge of the operation management of 9 toll toll highways. Most of these highways are located around Madrid, with 2 extending to Castilla-La Mancha and 2 more in Murcia and Alicante, 14 associated free motorways, 25 service area, and we are 540 people. SAID has planned an investment of 385 million over the next 4 years, with 223 million allocated to pavement. The case study is situated in one of the highways around Madrid, the M50 highway. The M50 highway spans 85 kilometers and features an open horseshoe shape to the north, maintaining an average distance of 13 kilometers from the city center. In 2024, it reached an average daily traffic of 100,000 vehicles. SAID has planned to invest 73 million in pavement improvements. These pavement works presented a unique opportunity to measure vehicle emissions before and after the pavement activity, ultimately drawing conclusions on the impact of road surfaces conditions on greenhouse gas emissions. In November 2023, SAID launched a study in collaboration with the University of Valencia, the company Shova, and ASEVMA, whose characteristics I will explain to you. First, let me show you the appearance of M50 highway path before and after the works were completed. The video below shows the conditions of the road surface in November 2023 before the repaving works started. The video above shows the road at the end of August 2024 once the works were finished, how José Carlos has said before. Okay, so the main objective of this case study is the evaluation of the environmental impact of the repave works in the M50 highway based on the before-after study of the quantification of greenhouse gas emissions emitted by vehicle. The hypotheses were 3. First, improved pavement conditions leads to reduced greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles. An improvement in pavement conditions leads to a reduction in travel times, and an improvement in pavement conditions leads to lower variations in traffic speed for road users and consequently to an increase in road safety. Yes, I think that maintenance it has a effect in the road safety because it was a question before. So the methodology has been carried out in 4 steps. Determination of vehicle fleet, data collection and filtering, segmentation of F50 in homogeneous road segments, and the before-after study. We analyzed the real fleet of vehicles circulating on the M50 using data provided by DGT, the Directorate General of Traffic in Spain. Based on the composition of this fleet, we have defined the design vehicle, which is made up of 45% of car diesel, 30% of car petrol, 12% of light commercial vehicles, 8% of trucks, and 5% of buses. We evaluated off-peak hours to avoid the influence on non-free flow driving, aiming to identify the influence of paving as objectively as possible, and we also consider weekdays. We recorded 3 types of data from connected and an autonomous vehicle with the help of Shova. Pavement condition from NIRA, fuel consumption from Webfleet, and speed from INRIX, but also from NIRA and Webfleet. With this data, we characterize the M50 based on its roughness with data collected per hectometer. Prior to the study, it was found that the ERI provided by the vehicle data is closely related to the ERI of the auscultation. Consumption data are more complex because vehicle provides consumption information from one record to the other. This record must be translated into consumption per hectometer. This is done by calculating average consumption over distance and using weighted average for each hectometer of the road. We performed this calculation for each type of vehicle and finally for the design vehicle, which represents the fleet of our M50. Finally, we have the fuel consumption distribution for the design vehicle as follows. As you know, various factors relate fuel consumption to carbon dioxide emissions. We have used the factors provided by the Spanish Ministry for Ecological Transition. Additionally, we have speed data per hectometer during off-peak hours for our design vehicle. The third step, involving identifying homogeneous road segments based on repaving works. We identify the places where works have been done, vertical alignment, and pavement conditions before works, meaning similar ERI sections. And finally, we defined these 8 homogeneous segments. And here we are, arriving at the before-after study. The data collections and filtering process was carried out in November 2023, before works, and November 2024, after works, on working days and during off-peak hours. November was chosen because it's a typical month in Madrid with no holidays or long weekends, ensuring normal traffic flows. We selected also the same month to maintain consistent temperatures, as these influence consumption. And what did we do? We determined for each vehicle and fuel type the consumption and emissions per hectometer an hour. We filtered the data to include only off-peak hours. We calculated the consumption and emissions for the design vehicle per hectometer. And finally, we estimated these values for each homogeneous road segment. And we performed this analysis twice, in November 2023 and November 2024. The result. This table shows, in terms of roughness, consumption, emissions, and speeds for each homogeneous road segment before November 2023 and after the works. As can be seen, all roughness values have improved, with higher values in the yellow shaded areas, which are still in the intermediate layer. The green segments are in the wearing course. Consumption has decreased even as speed has increased. Here are the results in the form of differences, which may be clearer, and here in percentage form. And in this graph, we can see clearly how an improvement in roughness translates into a reduction in fuel consumption and consequently emissions. In this graph, we explain something curious, the influence of road gradient on fuel consumption and the improvement brought by repaving. When the gradient is negative on the left side, the differences in consumption before and after repaving are significantly reduced. Conversely, on positive gradients, the benefits are magnified. So we come there to the results. On average, a 9–10% reduction in fuel consumption and emissions was achieved. Considering that approximately 115,000 vehicles travel on this road per day in the first 2 months of 2025, we can estimate a daily saving of 32,000 liters of fuel and 86 tons of carbon dioxide emissions. This is equivalent to almost, 12,000 cubic meters of fuel and 31,000 tons of carbon dioxide of saving per year. For better understanding, I would say that 12,000 cubic meters means almost 5 Olympic swimming pools of fuel saving per year. And 31,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions means 140,000 trees growing for 10 years, or 1.5 million of trees per year. And don't forget that all these results were achieved only with just 35 kilometers of pavement works. So we can certainly state that these results show how the pavement improvement contributes to the decarbonization of the transport sector. Some takeaways. On average, the development of repaving works has resulted in a 9–10% reduction in fuel consumption and emissions. For an average daily traffic of 115,000 and 35 kilometers of pavement works means saving of 12,000 cubic meters of fuel and 31,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions. If we monetize these results, it means 18 million euros in saving in fuel and 2 million euros in emission rights. So finally, maintaining adequate pavement condition is crucial for sustainable road infrastructure, and I added, and for economy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Camino.
Oops.
Thank you, Camino, for this very interesting data and information. A lot to discuss in the roundtable later on, I would say. Very interesting. But before we come to the roundtable, we have 2 more guests and 2 more speakers for the day. We also welcome Thomas Fabian from ASEA, the European Automobile Manufacturers Association. He is the Chief Commercial Vehicles Manager. With a broad view of the transport sector's evolution, he'll discuss how Europe's road transport is navigating the intersection of decarbonization, infrastructure demands, and competitiveness. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carsten, and also thank you very much for the invitation. Great pleasure to be here again. I will, as you said, I will focus on our perspective as vehicle manufacturers on the challenges that we're jointly facing at the moment. And you pointed them out already. It's decarbonization, it's competitiveness, and a lot of this is related to infrastructures, obviously. We're in the early stages here as road transport of a fundamental restructuring and transformation of the industry. This will affect all stakeholders across the value chain. This will affect vehicle manufacturers, it will affect transport operators, and it will certainly have an effect on infrastructures. Our challenge is, our ambition is to go fossil-free by 2040, and that means for heavy-duty vehicles, trucks and buses, we need to essentially transition away from the fossil diesel-powered vehicles today as quickly as possible to alternative powertrains. There is no silver bullet solution in heavy-duty road transport. There is just a multitude of different use cases that require different powertrains. But it is also clear that the primary technology will be zero-emission vehicles. And here, battery electric vehicles will play quite an important role. Now, how do we do this? This sector, our industry, is a B2B market where transport operators never, ever buy or run a vehicle just for fun. They always have a business case in mind. And if they don't have the business case, it's not going to happen. So it's a fairly simple equation. It requires the vehicles. That is our job. It requires the infrastructures. And here we're talking essentially about new infrastructures, also new infrastructures. So charging and refueling infrastructure, for example, along the highways. And we're also talking about anything that is related to helping create the business case, and that is carbon pricing measures, which we already have in place in many cases, in many countries, road charging system, for example, for heavy-duty vehicles. Now, in fact, this is a fairly simple equation. If one of the factors is zero or close to zero, the result will be rather low or zero. It will not happen. And this is a strong statement on the interdependencies we're facing here in this industry. Now, in fact, it is obviously far more complex than these three factors. It's a 1,000 pieces puzzle in every single use case. For every single transport operator and their business, they need to create the individual use case and business case for them to choose zero-emission vehicles over conventionally powered vehicles. We have targets, regulatory targets, that require us to bring down the emissions of new vehicles already by 2030 by 45%. And that will essentially translate into about 400,000 zero-emission vehicles, primarily heavy-duty vehicles, long-haul operations, that will have to be on the road by 2030. Now, we have a wide and increasing range of vehicles on offer across all configurations. And of course, this will continue to grow, and the different applications that can be used with these vehicles and will also increase further. We're not starting from zero, and I remember we had this discussion earlier that where do we stand at the moment with this transition? What you see here is that we're on, for vehicles, heavy-duty vehicles above 3.5 tons in Europe, we had last year, 2024, an average new registrations share of zero-emission vehicles of 2.3%. We need to be at about 35% in 2030. So this needs to increase rapidly, 2.3%, but you also see the evolution here from over the last 3 years. So there is some movement here. Mm-hmm. At the same time, if you look at the heavy segment, especially 16 tons, we're only talking at the moment about 1.5%, 1.2% zero emission share. Now, the key challenge is the infrastructure. charging and refueling infrastructure. No one will invest in a zero-emission vehicle if they do not have access to charging. Not all of this, in fact, the majority of the charging will have to happen at depots. But without on-site, en route charging infrastructures, operators will not be able to run the vehicles in the business cases that they're operating in. And here's the link to road infrastructure. We obviously, and that's why I'm very grateful for the earlier presentation, obviously we need well-maintained roads in addition to the charging infrastructure to make sure that we have connectivity, that we have smooth traffic flows, transport logistics flows, but also well-maintained in order to have fuel/energy efficient vehicles on the road. Another dimension here, and again, none of our customers, transport operators, will invest in these vehicles without having a clear business case, a robust business case that makes them choose zero-emission vehicles over alternative or conventionally powered vehicles, powertrains. And that is where we come to cost parity issues. And the policy framework that we're thinking of here is that I mentioned the carbon pricing system, but I also mentioned the Eurovignette, the CO2-based road charges that do support and have to support the price differential in favor of zero-emission vehicles. Another dimension of this is that especially the battery electric vehicles will be heavier. They are heavier than due to the powertrain than the conventional powered vehicles. And this is, we're fully aware of this, puts a lot of strain, additional strain on the infrastructure. Road maintenance investments will have to consider this eventually. At the same time, creating a level playing field, also in terms of payload, which obviously heavier vehicles eat into the payload of these vehicles, and this eats into the profitability of operating these vehicles. Without having this level playing field, it will be very difficult for a range of for operators to actually consider investing in these vehicles, which is why we're advocating very clearly for an increase of the total vehicle weight limits and especially also the drive axle weight limits. And again, we're fully aware that this has negative impacts on the infrastructure, but it is a challenge that we're jointly facing here. And there's also, there's two additional dimensions here that I would like to mention. One is, if we do not adjust this framework that I mentioned, then this transition will actually, and it was mentioned earlier in the first session today, we're still faced with growing road transport. If we will not adjust the policy framework that allows for heavier vehicles, the transition to zero-emission vehicles will actually require more vehicles to carry the same payload. And that will also require additional space, additional chargers, additional energy consumption. None of that is popular, and none of that is what and accelerate this transition to zero-emission vehicles. I mentioned the challenge we are facing here. We're at 2.3% last year. We need to be at about 35% in 2030. So there must be very urgently, very clear and robust business cases for our customers to be able and willing to invest in these vehicles. Policymakers can do a lot about this, can support a lot of this, but it is not just one stroke of a pen that can solve the problem. It requires collaboration on many, many different levels. Today, too many of those pieces of the puzzle are still red at the moment, so that our customers are actually not in the position to consider operating them in robust business cases. I would like to conclude with, again, saying that decarbonizing road transport is a collective challenge here, and it is about understanding and tackling jointly the interdependencies of this sector. It requires collaborative, and it also requires decisive action that where vehicle manufacturers play a role, transport operators play a role, shippers, logistics providers, those who tender the transport services. But a very important part of the puzzle is also the new infrastructures, charging and refueling infrastructure, and not the least, operators of road infrastructures at large. We need a coherent and supportive policy framework, and we all need to understand that the timelines, I mentioned 2030, are extremely challenging, yet it is also clear that this transition will not happen overnight. It will take time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for this presentation. I think a lot to discuss in the round table also in this presentation. And we have another presentation in this session, which is Juan Jose Potti. You already welcomed the people in the first session, so I don't need to introduce you. You're the president of
will be too much.
Will be too much. Yeah. No. You are the president of the Spanish Contractors, Asphalt Contractors Association. So you will talk about a totally different approach in communication. I'm happy that we have it here, because that will maybe also be a good start for discussions later on in the round table. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Yes, first thing I wish to remember, please send your post using both hashtags, IRMD or ERMF 2025. Well, exactly, I will try to in the next minutes to talk about a different way to communicate and to express our challenges. Well, I say this morning, this is also upon time. Probably, Carsten, do you remember this picture? Was taken when we present in the parliamentary breakfast 8 years ago, 9 years ago, quite 8.5. This document, for me, was the origin of this initiative. And several months later, I have a dream, and I propose to create that. This is the International Road Maintenance Day. Well, we are now today, 8 years later, of this initiative, and I propose you to think about strategy. Basis: if more than 20% of emissions generated in the European Union come from road transport, if we already have, thanks to big data, for example, confirmation about the quantification of savings in terms of emission and energy that we can reduce in the vehicles that circulate on the road. If we can now accurately quantify how much energy we can save annually and how many emissions we can save annually. It isn't time to act and to propose a new strategy to defend the need to properly maintain roads? This is the basis of my reflection, and I give some elements. What are the most common arguments used until today to defend the need for a proper road maintenance? I know very well the answer, and you also. Comfort and safety. C and S. And for me, evidently, when you see the figures, was not enough to defend the necessity to apply this proper road maintenance. I propose, and this is the basis, given the current data, what are the updated reasons to defending the need to properly maintain roads? This is my proposal. My proposal is to think and to express to the citizens we are able to reduce emissions, we are able to reduce consumption of each vehicle, we are able to reduce energy, because don't think only on the combustion engine. Evidently, energy is same level, is consumption, expressed in a different way, but electric cars is energy. And we need to give this element. And due to that, we have 5 elements. Emissions, E, consumption, C, energy, E, comfort and safety. 5 arguments. Well, it's difficult to express each cases. I propose more easily, especially for the pronunciation, ceste, philosophy. Well, based on that, this new acronym strategy. Think about that. Let's now consider how communicate and defend the need to properly maintain roads under this approach. Don't repeat the 5 elements. Let's consider drafting on road construction project. Let's think about communicating to the citizen through the construction, for example, signage. Let's think about national and European decarbonization goals. And let's think about the national and European energy saving goals. Based on that, and considering the time, I will express and will develop the first 2 elements. Well, the first goal is based on CESE philosophy, which will be the different way to express and to propose a project. Well, I use the artificial intelligence. I introduce new vision, a young people thinking on the future based on these elements. And I receive a woman thinking in this approach. Well, and the first thing I propose is we talk until today about a special, we know perfectly between us, but road reinforcement and road rehabilitation projects. Do you think is the right way to express to all the citizens? Do you think is the most clever, the most update approach? I feel it's too endogamic, and I propose to change and to express projects for the reduction of emissions and for the reduction of fuel and energy consumption of the vehicles circulating between such and such kilometers. Seems the same, but it's totally different. The goal is not to apply the reinforcement. Reinforcement or rehabilitation will be the way, but the goal is to reduce energy, reduce consumption, reduce energy. And I propose quantify in each project, based on the estimated traffic and based on the proposed rehabilitation actions, which is exactly how energy, how emission, how energy you can reduce. It seems not too much, but I feel it's totally different approach, especially in the second stage, communicating to the citizens. In Spain, in ASEPMA, for example, we said ASEPMA, reinforcing the road, consolidating the future. Seems logical, is a strong argument to defend, but we change. We change based on this philosophy, and now we say ASEPMA, reducing emissions is our goal. Reducing emissions, reinforcing the roads. This is the way. But the goal is reduce emissions. And we should stop talking, is my proposal, talking about rehabilitation and reinforcement projects. My proposal, I propose instead this often a system today that use that projects to reduce emissions and fuel energy consumption of vehicles circulating between such and such kilometers. This I repeat the year by year, and one day, last year, I see Community of Madrid. We live there. Community of Madrid, the plan of roads for the next 5 years, 7 years, 25 to 32. Now is named, on the past was Plan to Rehabilitation, Plan to Reinforcement of Roads. No, now is named Plan to Minimize the Emissions generated by the transport in the Community of Madrid during this year. This is the way, in my opinion. This is my proposal. Use this new vision, new goal. And finishing my presentation, communicating to the citizens. According to my president proposal, quantification the project and to know exactly how much we reduce emission, how much we reduce in terms of consumption. We have that. We have the possibility to know, thanks to the big data, thanks to the all the elements we know. My proposal is to share with the citizen. We have, for example, Camino in your project. Do you have you talk? You see on the panels how much was the investment, which is the PICA started and PICA end between this and. But why not to share this information with the citizen? For example, we can share. What is a proposal with the citizen? You reduce here between this and this kilometer 6.9 or 9.6, it depends, it's a question of calculation, in your fuel consumption. And we reduce together, because you know the fleet, you know the X tons of emissions. And why not imagine this information on the signals or in the panels? Because I feel it's totally different to have the perception. I see a panel saying, we invest 100 millions. It's too much money. But if you express, you reduce 7% or 10% of consumption, oh, that's interesting. And we reduce this quantity of emission, well, this is my proposal. Conclusions, yes. The conclusion are preventive road maintenance can be a very important way, in my opinion, to reduce emissions and energy at the European Union. Preventive road maintenance can be a very important to reduce consumption energy of the vehicle circulating. Don't forget that. Is the most important emission are generated by the vehicle circulating, evidently, no on the construction. We shall make an emission map, for example, in Europe, imagine that, giving this information, and even more, giving a proposal to reduce the emissions, thanks our action, thanks to a very well strategic planned rehabilitation projects. Road rehabilitation projects should be called, I repeat, emission and energy reduction projects. And my question, final remark, always the same. We can share to the citizen on the signals or on the panels this information. My answer is yes. But think, please, about this philosophy to defend road maintenance. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Juan Jose, for this disruptive ideas. And we can see in your presentation that communication is very important. We do a lot of good things. We spend a lot of ideas, do research. We have the best experts in the field to reduce emissions, to build the best roads, to maintain the roads. What we lack is money and communication, how to do this in a good way. What do you think? I would like to open the discussion, the roundtable discussion, with a question related to the presentation of Juan Jose. What do you think about this idea to speak about emissions reducing job site and not a maintenance job? So, Thomas, you would like to start, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a very good idea, actually. And in parts, as indicated, it has been done already. But the very important part here is, I think, that this covers the running fleet, right? While our approach, which is part of the solution as well as vehicle manufacturers and has to be part of the solution, is we can only address new vehicles here, right? So I think it's a very important element to consider communicating very clearly about the emission improvements and reductions that can be achieved. And it can also be, you described this earlier in your presentation, it can also be quantified on a fairly abstract level, but on a very project level. So down to a specific project here. So I think it's a good idea to consider very carefully.
Yeah, and when we see a road as a service, what we discussed before in the roundtable, and you see such a sign which says you as the road user at that moment save 7% or 8 or 9 or 10% of your fuel personally. It's not just because of for the environment and you have a smooth ride. It's also you save money, your own money. So
Yeah, I think it's a bright idea because it's not intuitive to us. At least it wasn't to me before measuring the effects. You could see in the line that Camino was showing, the effect is bigger as the slope gets bigger. No, so having a heavily trafficked road going uphill, an uneven road. If it's uneven, it's very rough. You're wasting fuel. You're wasting energy. You know, and at home, for example, if I leave my window open and have the air conditioning on, my daughter will say, "Oh, that she's already aware that that's being non-efficient. She knows that already." But we don't think that a road is being inefficient and that we're wasting energy. Actually, we prefer that the roads are not fixed because there's no hassle. You don't see construction machine, which we identify as contaminant. No, so I think we need to shift and the paradigm and make it intuitive.
Camino.
I
Your
totally
thoughts?
agree with Juanjo. I love the idea
Thank you.
because there are different reasons. First, I think that citizens, when there are some works on road, everybody is like very angry because I can't drive easily. Oh, the work in the road is so. But it's after they feel not only the comfort and safety, but they know that this work is reducing carbon dioxide emissions. It's something more, and also for the young people, road is not very friendly for young people. They don't like. They feel like carbonation. It's like they are los que crean, and the people. Road sector is the principal problem for the climate change, etc. And if we can say we are working for the climate, and we are working for reducing dioxide emissions, they're going to start feeling, or they are going to, es que no sé.
Take your time. We are not in a hurry. Take your
They
time.
are going to receive the road sector in another way. And I think it's very, very important because we are losing people in the road sector, and it can be another approach for
Yeah.
them.
It can be a game changer to give a positive attitude to roads.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Everybody needs a road to come from A to B, to school, to visit grandma, to the hospital, whatever. And we learned through COVID that this is a very important part of our society, the roads, the backbone. And if we can see that as a positive thing, you have to travel anyway, and you need a road, however, whatever you do. But it's positive. And then you have to spend, of course, some fuel consumption. Yeah. But if we reduce that by the vehicles we use and by the surface we provide, wow.
We're on the right way.
We are on the right way. Yeah. Ralph, you want to also comment on that?
This is exactly what I'm talking about, which is my favorite theme. I fully agree that at the end of the day, it's a question of the image of the road sector and of the image of the road. Most young people think the road is there, nothing has to be done. And we have to explain to the people that it's similar to the discussion about the cow and the milk. If you want milk, you need a cow. And many people say, no, I just want the milk and don't want the cow. With the road, it's the same. And we have to work on the improvement of the image of our sector of the roads, that people need roads and that they don't fall from the skies, that they have to be planned, financed, decided to build and maintain. That needs people and it needs material and aggregates. This is also a very important aspect, that it's not only the road itself. It begins at the quarry. We need permissions in the quarries. We need the political decisions that quarries are not only bad, but that they provide material to build roads. We need the people, and the people come and work on the road if we have a positive image, and if we give them the feeling, and if we show them that they don't only work with rubber shoes in the dirt, but that they improve the environment. This would be a very important aspect to reduce the lack of next generation of road workers. And this is a span of themes from the beginning to the end, and I fully agree to especially your arguments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further comments?
Yeah,
Jose, please.
only to remark, because I see your presentation, Camino. Congratulations to all the people. But Camino's, you show quickly, because it was only 2 minutes, but I see several figures to give only to remark that. You show in these 35 kilometers, analyze it, a reduction more or less around 9 to 10% in consumption. 9 to 10% of consumption, probably, if you ask me, how much is your consumption? It depends. My speed, it depends, a lot of things. But I have more or less one idea. You give accumulated by day, only in 35 kilometers.
Yeah.
If I take the figure, the number, multiplied by 365 days, if considering a price 1.5 euros per liter, we talk about 18 millions each year. Think about that. In 36 kilometers.
For the road user.
Yes.
For the road user.
Yes, that's the question. We are able to reduce to all the citizens a big quantity. You express and you say how much you spend, you invest to improve the condition of the payment. But I feel we need to share this information to the citizen, and thanks to our work, you reduce your investment, you spend in consumption at this level. It's really important. Evidently, if you consider all the traffic on this area, I made also a calculation, is more than 2 millions only for 35 kilometers. 2 millions considering emission and 18 millions in consumption. Wow.
And we have invested 73 millions in 85 kilometers.
Exactly.
So for
Exactly.
35 kilometers it's like 40 millions. So we are in 2 years, we have 30,
Absolutely
36
return.
Yeah.
numbers that they are really interesting.
Yeah, groundbreaking figures, I would say.
Yeah.
And I remember that we had the discussion also last year. We had a short video during this event from the Danish from the Danish Association, from the representative of the Danish Asphalt Pavement Association, and he was referring to a study made by the Danish road authorities. Exactly what is the societal benefit of maintaining roads, and maybe even put more on it, have a tailor-made road surface which reduces rolling distance and fuel consumption additionally. So it's not just bringing the surface condition in a good condition, in a good shape, or having a good surface condition. We can have tailor-made solutions with pavements, and this is on top of it. So the gain is even higher.
Yeah.
And they found out at that time, with not that data that you have now on the table, coming out of this research and this efforts, they already also found that the society has a benefit if it's invested in roads. And we can prove this now even better with the data that you provided in this project. Right, please.
And there's another aspect which might help to sell that argument to the people. Everybody normally cares about his car. In the first part of this podcast, it was already talked about. Everybody sees his car to be maintained, to be in a good shape, to be safe, and so on. And to see at the other side of the car, underneath the wheels, is the road, and the importance of saving fuel, of saving emissions, and of safety. There is the contact between the car and the road, and we have to tell the people, and we have to show the people that to improve the car in terms of fuel efficiency, there's much investment to gather 1 or 2% maybe. And on the other side, it's much easier to get that improvement by maintaining. And maybe we can show the people, this is your road. This is not the road of an abstract body. This is your road. You have paid for that. So let's agree to pay into this meter square of road, which is yours, to save your money at the end of the day. So we get the people feeling that they own the road and they are interested in maintaining it because it's theirs.
It's worth. It's really worth.
It actually is theirs. That's what we all forget. When we don't invest in this large asset, Christoph Nicodem mentioned the the high value and the asset of this investment we have taken all over as a society over many, many decades. It's our asset, yeah. And why should we not maintain it? Why should we not keep it in a good condition? Because we use it every day. So there we have the data now, again, and the communication tools to put some pressure on decision makers in this sense.
Absolutely.
Thomas, you want to add something?
I mean, I just wanted to contribute to this, indeed echo that the value of the infrastructures that we have, and I'm not talking about the monetary value here, but the value for our economies, for our societies, cannot be overestimated. We're all using the roads all the time, and they significantly contribute to prosperity and the well-being and future development of our societies. Adding and all the arguments, Carsten, that you just made. Of course, it's smart policy to actually maintain what has been developed over decades. Adding the dimension here that, of course, well-maintained roads and infrastructures in general, and improved surfaces, as you described this, road surfaces can contribute significantly also to the challenge we're all facing at the moment, and that is tackling the climate change emissions that we're faced with. So this is an important addition, and it cannot be said often enough, and the value of these infrastructures cannot be overestimated.
Any further comments? Yeah, Ralph, please.
Maybe we should also calculate that someone who operates a car for a certain amount of kilometers or years has paid a certain meter square of road. And so everybody gets the feeling that I own I drive since 50 years. So, these are some kilometers of road that I already have paid. So I'm interested to keep this in good shape. Maybe we should also try to calculate based on that theoretical model to make the people aware of, hey, this is yours.
If the money would be earmarked, the money you spend while driving your car, when you go to the gas station, buy the gas, have the taxes on them, the money is not spent on roads. We see it. That's the reason why we're sitting here. So it's not spent on road maintenance. It's not earmarked. If that would be the case, things would be differently. Yeah, but we have to quantify. We have to communicate. Definitely. Yeah. Any more comments on this topic? Otherwise, I have also received some questions from the online participants, which is a little bit more technical, I would say. So one of the question is, electric vehicles will have increased weight and will put a lot of impact on the pavement and the pavement. So deterioration will be more often occur. How could this be resolved? So by road maintenance. Yeah. But if we have more heavy vehicles coming from different engines, we have a higher impact on the road surface, of course, or on the pavement structure itself, the surface also, and we have to do some strengthening of the surfaces, or of the structure itself, and that's possible. We have the technologies, we have the knowledge, we even have published from EAPA side what does it mean if we have changed transport system on the roads. With electrical vehicles, we have a different friction on the surface, we have a different shear forces, a different weight. What does that mean for asphalt pavement especially? So we prepared a document you can download on the EAPA website where we made up our minds, what does that mean? And I remember we had Steve in the first session today, and Steve was, when we had a discussion in the parliament, and he said, a lot of sustainability efforts from the society are on the shoulders of the road. Yeah. We want to decarbonize road. The road infrastructure has to suffer because more heavy vehicles, different acceleration of the vehicles, so different higher impact on the road. We need even more efforts to have a good road maintenance. or to have a good road surface,
Absolutely.
more road maintenance.
Absolutely.
That is increased road maintenance. And you also mentioned that, Thomas, in your presentation, what the impact on the road or the infrastructure could be. So this is really a good question. Thank you.
Absolutely.
People.
I have one remark. Is you give this data, your presentation was very important, and we have the calculation. Where I made the calculation based on your information, but we have this information based only in the modern cars. That's true, because modern cars,
The cars today.
cars today, yes.
Yeah.
Which is the percentage in terms of the fleet of this car are able to communicate, give this information?
I think the cars that are connected that
Yes.
can,
Yes.
I think since 2019, I think it's mandatory to have the equal
Yes.
connection,
in
something
total-
like that.
Yeah, but if I may
Or
add,
you might know more than me.
well, I don't know the figure for cars, but I know that for trucks we have hundreds of thousands of connected trucks, heavy-duty vehicles on the road, literally. And the point is, I mean, we all know that road infrastructure impact, road wear and tear is impacted heavily, influenced heavily by the number of axles, the total weight, the axle weight. So it's a complex calculation here, but it's also clear that trucks do disproportionately affect
Exactly.
the infrastructure.
Mhm.
And we do have ideas and proposals how the impact can be minimized, right? So it's not a brunt force impact that tomorrow everything will be just 4 tons heavier, for example. That's not what we're talking about. We have ideas, and this is what I mentioned earlier, adjustments in the policy framework that we need to make that minimize the impact on the road infrastructure.
Exactly.
But the one thing we cannot do is assume nothing is happening. So we cannot wait and see what's happening. We need to actively address the issue. And that includes, obviously, more infrastructure investments, upgrading, reinforcing, I think was the term used earlier, reinforcing the infrastructures. The good news is, even though I mentioned very ambitious and challenging timelines that we are faced with in transitioning to zero-emission vehicles, the technology improves further. So we might see at the moment a very meaningful payload penalty, if you want. So vehicles that are heavier, that if we don't address this in the policy framework, would essentially negatively affect our customers' calculations here in operating these vehicles. But technology improves further. Let's revisit this after adjusting the rules 5 years after entry into force to check if this is still needed, these adjustments. If the battery technology has not improved further. And even though I mentioned the ambitious market uptake that we need to see in order to cut the emissions as required, it is not happening overnight. So especially not in the fleet, right? We're talking about single-digit fleet penetration figures over quite many years to come. And this is time we collectively should and must use to reinforce the infrastructure.
Yeah. Because if 2030, you need 35% of commercial vehicles, electrical vehicles, that they are heavier. And if 2030, you don't have the roads, or you still have the roads like we have the roads today, we're going to have a problem. Because in 2030, the roads are going to, they're going to.
But not all. So not all of the vehicles will be heavier in 2030, right? I mean, there's only a limited number of operators that actually max out the payload and the limits. The vast majority, in many use cases, do not need the full payload. But again, I think my message and probably our joint message should be: there's no time for complacency. There's no time for wait and see. We need to actively address
Quickly
this challenge.
Absolutely.
Jose Carlos.
Yeah, I have a question actually. When you were showing the figures in your presentation, I think for the lighter vehicles, 2024 it was 2.5. Okay, coming from 1.6 or something like that. Is that a number? If we had asked you last year, what did you expect? Because when you are showing that, I remember last year, your last year presentation, the numbers looked obviously small. They were small, and they're going higher. But two questions. First, what would you have forecasted last year, and also could you give us a forecast for next year if you have to
To confirm.
I will write it down
And hold me accountable then.
No, because in the lighter I can understand. In the heavier, it has to be a hero, somebody that buys a zero emission.
So the answer that you will probably not like to hear is it's not going fast enough. It's not going fast enough. It is accelerating. We see improvements here, so we see an uptake. But 2.3%, that's all vehicles above 3.5 tons, is obviously, I mean, some operators invest in these vehicles, some, very few, probably to just test them, perhaps just to show even after testing. Many of those all of them will actually strive to make a business case. I mean, not just put it in a showroom, but operate these vehicles, right? And some of them will have figured out how to do this, if it makes sense. And we have promising examples that a significant share of those that are on the road today actually are in operation, in regular operation, and they're in profitable operations, compared to more profitable than conventionally powered vehicles. It is too few, though. It is far too few. Again, I mean, we need to see, rough calculation here is if we want to go from 2.5% or so in 24 for all above 3.5 tons, and it's only 1 and a bit percent of 16 tons. If we want to go from this figure to 35% or so in 2030, we're easily talking 50-something percent ballpark figure increase year over year. And our customers, transport operators, invest in these vehicles with a clear business case in mind. If the economy is not thriving, if no one is transporting things, then of course, why should investments be made into new vehicles? So this is an additional dimension where we clearly depend on regular and dynamic fleet renewal developments. So I'm not going to be trapped into giving you a figure.
But anything below 3.7 for next year would be getting us further away from target.
The 35% that I mentioned in 2030 is the minimum number that we need to see for vehicle manufacturers to avoid non-compliance penalties under the CO2 regulation. So the ambition of vehicle manufacturers is to go higher.
You get penalties, but
We
people
get penalties.
you just sell what people buy. No,
You have the point. We're not, and that's why we rely. That's why I mentioned these interdependencies of the industry, right? We rely on functional roads, well-maintained roads. We rely on transport operators being able and interested and willing to invest in new vehicles. And moreover, we need them to have strong robust business cases that favor the new powertrain technologies over the conventional ones. Right? So it is a very complex transition, and we're in the early stages of this transition. But it's a fundamental transformation of the entire industry.
And 2030 is in 5 years.
2030 is very, very close.
Less.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this inspiring and intense roundtable. I would like to take the opportunity to wrap up a bit what we discussed before, and to what is the key takeaways from today, and maybe also a call for actions, what we just discussed in this roundtable. So one of my key takeaways is investing in road maintenance is investing in sustainability and decarbonization of road transport. Yeah. So well-maintained roads lead to measurable reductions in fuel use and CO2 emissions, helping countries to meet climate targets more effectively. And there's no time to sit and wait. Second, data is not useful, it's essential. It is essential. We learned it from the alarm survey, the big data from vehicles. The future of road infrastructure planning depends on reliable, comprehensive information. And a third takeaway from my side, we need to shift the public's narrative. So the communication, it's not just maintenance, it's mission critical when we think of the mission of decarbonization, the industry, as the society, the world. It's mission critical for decarbonization and competitiveness. So really strong words on this. And I have 3 actions I would like to formulate out of this key takeaways and the discussions we had today. Integrate proactive maintenance strategies into national road maintenance plans or road plans, and allocate dedicated funding in EU and member state budgets. So this is a call for action to the Commission, to national road authorities. Another action, that's more on us, develop cross-sector agreements and platforms to make big data usable and available for road asset management and environmental monitoring. What we also learned today. And one last thing, which is for all stakeholders, launch joint communication campaigns and industry-wide or stakeholder-wide, all those who have to do with roads, messaging that promote maintenance as a key to sustainability using language like it's a road decarbonization job and not just a construction job site or paving job site. I hope you can all agree with that, this short summary of the 2 sessions. And I want to thank all the speakers of session 1, session 2, for preparing presentations, for coming to Brussels, for being here, for being so active in this. It was a big pleasure for EAPA and for me to host this event and to have you all here in our Brussels studio, or it's just the offices, which we prepared to be a studio today. So it's time to say goodbye from Brussels and Europe to the world. Stay healthy, stay connected to EAPA and the European Road Maintenance Forum, and especially to the International Road Maintenance Day. Next year, we will have a next edition. It will be on the 2nd April 2026. Again, the first Thursday every April. And we have, of course, we'll have a new European Road Maintenance Forum event on the occasion of that day. Thank you so much. Stay curious and goodbye.